Hello, and welcome to Have Your Say here on Radnor Studio 21. I'm Ann Minicozzi, founder of the Community Breakfast of the Mainline Undoing Racism Day, here with our co-host, Diana Robertson, president of the NAACP Mainline Branch. And today we're going to be talking about women's history because March is Women's History Month. So we're talking about women's history and did you know?
Yes.
So some of our favorite women in history and then some things that we didn't know about.
Right. So, yeah, I'm excited about that because during the course of time, women didn't always have, weren't acknowledged in their rightful place to do whatever they wanted to do in the same reign as men. But as I was looking up, I saw some very interesting information that people probably don't know. And so just to start a little bit with a couple of things, that today 71% of moms with kids under 18 work, whereas in 1975 fewer than 47% work. And I thought that was interesting because when we think back generations, you know, most of us might say, you know, like I know my mom is a nurse. However, she kind of worked when she wanted to.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't a thing that she felt that there's four of us, I have three other siblings, and so she basically felt, okay, I want to be home with my children and, you know, help be a part of raising them and from home, making sure that she was there when we came home from school and that sort of thing. And so now it's a different perspective on that, and there are those, you know, clearly who work because they definitely need to work, but then there are others just because of their own careers. And I think that a lot of women now, I don't know what the statistics are, but are having children later, so they already have established careers and they don't want to give that up.
Yeah.
So, you know, what are your thoughts about that?
Similar. My mom, now I'm from a family of 7 children, so my mom wanted to be home and be home after school for all of us and that kind of thing too. And another thing that I think was different is there is a whole neighborhood of moms who were home. So there was all of that like socializing that happened. I mean, it wasn't all the time.
Right.
All the other moms, mostly all of the other moms were home as well. So there was that kind of network that happened. So that's different than how it is now, where if most of the moms are working, they're not at home. And so around here, I would say with my children being in school here in the local public schools, there is a number of moms who are able to participate in planning the activities and the elementary school class parties. I was just running across in photos of I was on a committee to plan a baby shower for my son's 2nd grade teacher. So that was a big deal for that school year because the teacher was expecting, and she was going to go out in April or May. And then there would be another teacher who would come in to finish up the school year. So bridging that transition as all the moms in the class and making that a meaningful experience for her, and then all of the kids, you know, helping the teacher because as she advanced in her pregnancy, you know, she needed help plugging things into the wall and things like that. So that's a different kind of thing, how you're able to participate if you're helping with your children at school or something. But I don't know that as many moms are able to do that now because when you're working full-time, you can't be in all places.
Well, that's true. I mean, it's like another full-time job, you know, raising children. And I know for myself, with having 2 children, but when my daughter was born, I thought it was a big deal to be home. You know, I had been working for quite a few years, and I thought, oh, break from work, you know, that wasn't. It just became a different kind of work, but I enjoyed it, you know.
Yep.
So for the first year, was, you know, it was really good, and you know, that was a big deal to me. And then, you know, by the time my son came along, well, they're like 19 months apart, so and he was extremely active, and so it was like, okay, having been around all day and all the time with the children, then it was sort of like, I need something else.
Yeah.
But one of the things I think is hard nowadays too, because of the expense. So you have the expenses in general that are much higher than they were at that time.
Yeah.
And any type of daycare or this is very expensive. Yeah. Actually. So even for the ones who may stay home for a short period of time with the children, find that they just, you know, that they either will have, if they have family support, you know, will have someone from the family to help, and they go back, and so they're still able to go back to work. So
I was just reading about something in the newspaper that Amazon employees, not only do they have help with childcare, but they wanted support for backup childcare. So if the caregiver is ill, they still have another way to have their children taken care of while they're at work. And I would say for myself that those kinds of things were not in place nearly, so going back 23, 24 years, not nearly in place as much as they are now, where there's so many more options for child care if you don't have family members nearby or who can help and have that reliable care in place. There's many more options now.
And I think some of those options have come out of the fact that women are in different positions to be able to advocate for that, because they understand very clearly what that means, because it didn't necessarily, not for all men of course, but didn't necessarily impact men in the same way, you know. So they still went out and worked and did whatever for the period of time that they needed to, or the hours in a day. And I think now that you have more women who are presidents, CEOs, or entrepreneurs, they understand, and so therefore try to build that in, understanding the issues or the problems that they may have experienced, wanting to help other women to not have those same experiences, or make it a little bit easier for them to do both, to raise their children and to work.
So really, between the couple of us, and we've had different experiences through the years working, because I was working before as well, before I had my children, and then how you handle the motherhood experience. How that's changed even in recent years.
Absolutely. So one of the other things is women currently hold 17% of congressional and Senate seats. And 18% of the gubernatorial positions in the United States. So being in politics,
it's such a shockingly low number. I mean, it's better than it was, but it's still not parity by any means.
Oh no, not at all.
And it is so difficult to run for office and all that follows, and do that.
It's a big piece, because I still think, you know, for women who are not single, you know, it's still that extra pressure of I think the children, and you know, unless they get to a certain point before they are seeking these positions. And so once again, even the attitude of people in general sometimes think, if there are two running, if it's a male running and a female running, there's still sometimes the tendency to think the male person will be the better individual.
I was going to say, do you think that men, when they run for public office, run as individuals, but women run as a family? Or is that changing now, where it's so risky maybe if you run for public office, your whole personal life is scrutinized and everything, that maybe it's not,
well, I think the whole
men
personal,
don't have a benefit.
right, the scrutiny, I think, is for both, obviously, but it's just a matter of the time and who's going to suffer as a result of you running, or what kind of support do you have.
Yeah.
You know, I know that even when an interview with Michelle Obama, and she talked about, you know, being in the White House and all, you know, even though it was her husband who was president, then clearly, you know, she still had a responsibility as well, and that's why she had her mother, you know, there to specifically help with the children, you know, and so, and she talked about how, you know, that beneficial that really was.
Yeah.
Everybody might not be in that same position, you know. So even with all she was able to do, she definitely talked about, because they were young at the time when they started, and so to have her mother to kind of keep track and making sure that they were on point when she wasn't always able to be physically there was great. And I think the more support, when we talk about the village, you know, helping as part of that raising, so the more support that women have, the more they're able to do. Yeah. So, yeah. And so
it takes a village.
It really does take a village, you know, even when you don't have those other kinds of positions. So, yeah. Let's see here. Oh, approximately 14% of active members in the U.S. Armed Forces are women today. Wow. So that's increased a lot. Women have always played a role, but to actually be the active duty person, you know, in the military has increased quite a bit. So then it says over 60% of college degrees awarded in the U.S. every year are earned by women.
There are more women going to college.
Right, right. So,
significant numbers, and at some universities there are more women enrolled in a given class than men. So that's definitely changing.
Right. So that level of education is the other part, I think, that has also impacted the ability to work in certain capacities that women weren't able to before. So they're very educated.
I guess even in terms of the college students, but thinking of Title IX and how when that came into effect, how the sports needed to be opened up in the public schools and then in the universities as well. So if there's $100 going to a sport that men participate in, you have to have that same amount for women. Yeah. And it's really interesting to see that impact. Not even if a woman is graduating from college and played women's basketball, and there's not a private National Women's Basketball League or something like that, those skills that they're learning, and I would think eventually that will happen, but the skills that the women learn through the sports, you can see how that translates into their corporate, professional lives. Right. It's really amazing. It's really impressive.
Right. And, you know, when we speak on that, I was just recently having a conversation on that, and we were talking about how still, though, professionally, that there's still the disparities between women. So basketball is a perfect example, that you have the women teams, but in comparison to the men, they're still not publicized as much. They still don't get the same, they're not paid the same, clearly.
Yeah, don't get as so much attendance at the games.
Right, right.
Things like that.
Right. And there were some sports now where they're becoming more co-ed, with, I think, resistance. But in the sports like basketball or others that could easily happen, it's not happening, you know. And so we were just having a conversation about that when we were talking about there was news, and I can't remember her name, unfortunately, but of a female football player. And so she's going into, I think she's just starting college, and so she's going to be playing football. And so they were talking about, she was talking about basically how, breaking into that is a big deal for her, and she's not doing it for that reason, but she just feels that she can be just as competitive. So yeah, so that should be interesting, how that plays out. But even for the sports that there could be, combined, that some of them is very hard to do, or the reluctance to do it. So
yeah,
it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, that we'll have to keep an eye
how
on.
those things continue to play out.
Yeah.
So, and I liked this one. The 2 highest IQs ever recorded through standardized testing both belong to women.
Wow.
So I thought that was, I said, oh, great.
That's notable.
Oh, gosh. And then more American women work in the fields of education, health services, and social assistance industries than any other.
Okay.
So I thought those were very interesting facts. But the other piece of all that's going on with women recently, with the Me Too movement and other things, and I mean, what is your take on that?
On the whole Me Too movement?
Yeah,
I think
in general.
It's hard to sum up, but I think it definitely is time. And you're putting me on the spot here.
Well, I mean, I'm thinking as I go on, but I'm just thinking about, once again, with roles, what's been, naturally considered a woman's role, so to speak, and a man's role. But because of the changes now versus in the past, especially when you talked about the arts and all of that, it was hard for women to get roles, in certain fields. So
in movies and things like that.
Right.
Yeah.
So, unfortunately, because it was a male-dominated field, and probably still is, but, when it came to the decision-making as to who did what or who was able to get significant roles, I mean, the pressure was on for, instead of being competitive in your abilities, making it competitive in other ways. And I think the fact that the movement has come about to say no more, so to speak, that once again, when you listen to some of these statistics, and women are educated, they're very capable, they have talent, so why should they have to subject themselves to certain behavior in order to get certain roles or to be in certain positions?
Well, I think talking about the movies, the film industry, and the arts, I think is a really good way to talk about the Me Too movement, especially about stories. The stories that, it's very important to tell stories. It's something that we as human beings do. We tell stories.
Okay, right.
And if only certain stories are being told, that's what you're getting. That's a picture of your reality.
Right.
But I think what's happening now is all of us have stories, and more stories are able to be told, and we're also more interested in hearing each other's stories. So, well, one example would be if you think about fine art, at some periods of history, fine art would focus on royalty. Like in the Renaissance, the Medici family, who was the ruling class at the time in Florence, in Italy, their images of their faces are in all this artwork, and that's because they commissioned the artwork.
Oh, okay.
And then at other times in history, you would have artwork that features ordinary people, like Peter Bruegel would have paintings of of peasants listening to music and having food and enjoying themselves, or someone like Diego Rivera. And there was a great exhibit at the Art Museum of regular people in Mexico in these murals, and the images of the people are more than life-size. They're just, and they're so graceful. There's human dignity shown in the images, and you really see these wonderful representations of these people. So if you're just telling the stories of the rich, wealthy people, or if you're telling the stories of all of us, that there's a big difference. So now, and you could see in the Academy Awards all the different stories that were told by everyone who was nominated, not just the people who received the awards. That we're hearing so many different stories. And one of the things that we talk about in my class is the importance of being able to tell your own story and recognizing these stories that we pay attention to, that we think are the most meaningful. So I think, getting back to the Me Too movement, because this does connect, is we're open to hearing more stories, and the stories of women, and that is the big change now. There's more stories, and we're hearing them, and we want to.
And I think that's great, and I think that's with the current generation, they clearly don't have a problem with doing it, but I think it's good, as you're saying, because as they're being able to be in the positions to do that, then we can acknowledge and value their stories, as you say.
And I think getting back to statistics, which I don't have it in front of me, but millennials are much more open to hearing many stories. And it isn't some other way, so that we are getting a plethora of stories now.
So that's good.
And I think we're moving in that direction.
Great, that's good. Okay. So did you want to talk about your book?
I did, because I was thinking in terms of women's history and women who we learned from. So this book is called A Mysterious Life and Calling, From Slavery to Ministry in South Carolina, Reverend Mrs. Charlotte S. Riley. And it is edited by Dr. Krista Lucky at Villanova. She's an associate director, associate dean in the College of Arts and Sciences at Villanova University. So she's one of my heroes lately. I have a whole bunch of heroes. I think that's something that that I know I do. Have heroes who are, the people who are around us are heroes. We learn from them, we take examples from them. But she edited this manuscript, and Reverend Charlotte Riley is from the Charleston area in South Carolina, and she started off in her life as a slave and was helping a wealthy woman in her house and was able to be educated. She ends up having a significant religious experience, like a vision. And it was very credible to other people. She ends up becoming a minister of the AME Church, which I did not know that there was a female minister in the AME Church so early. And she ends up moving on from Charleston and going further west in South Carolina. But she continues on with her ministry. She becomes free. And she even ends up being the U.S. postmaster in her town of Lincolnville in South Carolina. After the Civil War, they needed a postmaster, and she was very well thought of and a significant leader. And it's just a tremendous story of what she was able to accomplish through her ministry and then in her town, and the connections that she made among the whites and the African Americans in her town, the kind of community that she was able to be a part of. And it's just a very interesting story, and it's one that people don't really know about. But fortunately, through Dr. Lucky publishing this, it's very interesting. So I would recommend that for reading to our viewing audience.
Great. And I know you also wanted to mention about the
The community garden show,
yes.
yes. We're starting to plan a community garden TV show, and this would be a show which focuses on community gardens in our area. So if you are interested in having your garden discussed on this show, please contact us. We do have a Gmail account, and so it would be havewhysay@gmail.com. If you have suggestions or ideas, or if you're participating in a community garden in the area, or anything that's related to that, just be in touch with us, and we'll get back in touch with you about it.
Great, great.
It's almost time to plant seeds, and I guess
Right.
March is also National Nutrition Month. So
yes.
eating fresh vegetables, growing
Right.
your own vegetables
Right.
is really important.
All tie in, right, right. So one of the things I think that as we consider discussing the contributions of women throughout history is that to emphasize to our young girls that they too can they can accomplish whatever they want to accomplish, that they can set goals, to use their God-given talents to be whatever they feel that they're called to be, and to not let anyone to deter them for that. Just finding out what does it take, getting the education, as you say, talking to individuals who are in those fields,
yeah.
so that they have an accurate picture of what those ideas may consist of, and so it may result in them pursuing that, or having a new vision
Yep.
as to where they may go. But the fact of the matter is, we want, as we're celebrating, we want all women to know that they are valued, that they are appreciated, and that as they continue to be able to seek out their goals, that they too will understand that they will have the opportunity to be able to use their voice,
Yep.
and to have your say. Thank you.